In for Vivian Morrison. And our chaplain is Martin Taylor, who's also doing live stream. And our musicians today are Danny Bauer and Philina Bunn. Our minister is Reverend Kurt Kandra, and our guest speaker is Davinder Singh. Welcome. Opening prayer. Holy presence, we know that in God we can never be separate from love, from truth, from infinite intelligence and the source of all good. We gather here in this sacred time to open our hearts and minds to the one power and one presence. We gratefully receive the energies of divine light and love pouring in and through us. And we affirm, we are here this morning for a divine purpose. We trust that that purpose is now being fulfilled, for we know we are now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. And so it is. Amen. And now for some music.
There's one power invisible, and you see it in everything and every day. One power indescribable, and you speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth. As simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Bula, Baalua, angel wings or heaven's doors. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of the love. And you and me, one power, one power, one power. We speak so many languages, have different clothing, different colors, different names. But difference only dangerous when we forget that in our hearts we're all the same. We'll remember once we close our eyes and see that such distances were never meant to be. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Bula, Wahaguru, Hashim or heaven's doors. It's Muhammad, it's your minds, it's your soul, it's your sign. It's the universe, it's music, Mother Earth and Father Time. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. It's the power of the love in you and me. One power, one power, one power. It's the moment of creation. It's the everlasting peace. It's the freedom of forgiveness. It's the sweetness of release. It's the joy of inspiration. It's the sunshine on your face. It's the birthright of all nations. It's the boundlessness of space. It's the beauty of a
One
baby,
power.
the serenity of
One
sleep.
power.
It's the anger we
One
abandon
power.
for the love that's
One
so
power.
deep. It's one power. One power. It's the power of the love that lives forever in you and me. It's the power of the love in you and me.
Is this on? That was really moving and wonderful. Thank you. Unity is a positive, practical approach for spiritual living based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer. We believe there is truth and beauty in every spiritual tradition, which fits right into our new program, Many Paths, One Source. We honor the many paths to the one God. Wherever you are on your journey of faith, you are always welcome here. Our purpose at Unity on the North Shore is to create a safe space where people are empowered to take risks and live their deepest truth. If this is your first Sunday with us, we extend a loving welcome. Many of us were surprised to learn there was a spiritual community that thought and believed the same things we did. It felt like coming home. We hope your experience this morning is equally as powerful and that you'll come back. And now, more music.
I believe we're all singing this one, right?
Right.
Love is my decision. It's up to me to give him my heart. Love is my decision. No one else can tell me to start. And once I decide to change my mind, love will show me how. Love is my decision, right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to stand on that bridge. Love is my decision. No one else can make me forgive. Once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision, right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to dance down that road. Love is my decision. No one else can lighten my load. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision, right here and now.
Good morning. My name is Martin Taylor and I'll be serving as your chaplain this morning. So let's begin by reading the daily word. And the daily word for today is acceptance. The affirmation is, I practice acceptance and find peace. In the past, I have resisted unwelcome situations and unwanted outcomes. Over time, I have learned that my resistance did little more than leave me agitated and unhappy. I have learned to trade resistance for acceptance. Accepting situations as they are does not mean that I like what is happening, but it does mean that I am willing to be present to it, without resistance or struggle. From that place, I am better able to work toward creating better conditions for myself and for others. When I practice acceptance, I invite the presence of God to inspire and comfort me. I shift my attention from what might feel wrong to that which is always right, the absolute, unchanging goodness of God. And the scripture, not that I am referring to being in need, for I have learned to be content with whatever I have. Philippians chapter 4, verse 11. And now as we continue to focus on prayer, let us center ourselves by taking in a deep breath, knowing that as we breathe in the air, we breathe in God's peace, we breathe in God's love. Let's hold that for a moment and recognize we are standing in sacred space. And as we release the air, we greet you, dear Holy Spirit, and thank you for your presence with us here right and now. So let us take a few moments to pray for yourselves, for those you love, and all that you're holding in mind right now. And now let us hold in prayer all who are suffering worldwide and affirm the presence of God's love and grace and guidance in every person and in every human condition. And so it is. Amen. And now let's return to some more music.
There's a place in your heart, and I know that this is love, and this place could be brighter than tomorrow. And if we really try, we'll find there's no need to cry. In this place, you'll feel there's no heart, hurt or sorrow. There's ways to get there if we care enough for the living. Make a better space, make a better place. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. If you want to know why there's that cannot die, love is strong, it only cares for joyful giving. If we try, we shall see. In this bliss we cannot feel fear or dread. We stop existing and start living. Then it feels that always love enough for us growing. Make a better world, make a better world. Heal the world, make it a better place for you this entire human race. There are people dying, but if we care enough for the living, we'll make a better place for you and for me. We could fly so high, let our spirits never die. In our heart, I feel you are all my brothers. Create a world with no fear. Together we'll cry happy tears. See the nations turn our swords into plowshares. We could really get there if we care enough for a living. Make a better place. Make a better place. Heal the world. Make it a better place for you and for me and this entire human race. There are people dying, but if we care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If we care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. For you and for me.
Thanks, Felina. Thank you, Danny. So I'm Reverend Kurt, for any who might be joining us online or any who are visiting here today. And actually, I have today off. I'm really excited about that. This is the second in our Many Paths, One Source series. We'll be evaluating, or we'll be experiencing 6 different religious leaders from 6 different religions or spiritual traditions. We'll be sharing a bit about their teachings over the course of through June, I guess. I want to thank Joe Zephron for organizing this and for bringing all these folks together for us. But in the meantime, I want to say, that song is sort of a beautiful setup for what this work is about. Like, part of how we can help to make the world a better place and come from a more loving space in our own heart is to deepen our understanding of different traditions and to maybe start to build some greater resiliency for really recognizing and reaching out and holding in curiosity maybe the differences that we experience or that we perceive in other traditions. So that's kind of my invitation as we move into our Many Paths, One Source discussion today, is to really sort of sit with a space of receptivity, just to open your heart, to listen. Certainly it's easy to resonate with, and there's going to be much that you'll hear that the Sikh tradition and unity have lots of common ground, but also to be open to the differences, and in those differences to find a place of honor and respect and really a way of holding that in curiosity rather than judgment, because I think that's a skill that if we practice here, when it's easy, we can take out and be able to use when we're watching headlines on the news that are much more sort of presented divisively. So this is a space for us to really be agents that we can heal the world. So our guest speaker today is Devinder Singh. He is Executive Director of the Sikh Resource Center and American Sikh Council. He's a native Chicagoan, and he is passionate about healthcare and building bridges through interfaith dialogue. Devinder has had the honor of participating in events and talks all across the globe, teaching fellow global citizens about the Sikh way of life, ideology, and ethos. Devinder is dedicated to building a society in which all people are treated justly and as equals, as in the Sikh concept of Sarbat de Bahala. Did I get that right? Which I did a little bit of internet research, and essentially means may everyone prosper. So it's really, that sort of feeling of abundance and blessing to all. We are blessed to have Devinder Singh speak to us this morning as part of our Many Paths, One Source Interfaith series. And before I bring him up for a warm unity welcome, there were about a dozen of us who were able to visit the Gurwan out in Palestine last night. And Palatine last night. We flew. Yeah, that's better than Taylor Swift could do on Super Bowl, right? And what I found is that he's incredibly engaging. As we were talking this morning, he has a beautiful PowerPoint presentation and some historical information he wants to share, but he also suggested that he prefers to work in sort of a dialogue conversational style. So he's going to be open to questions. And I have the handheld mic, so when we get to that point, we want to make sure that those of you who are online can hear. So raise your hand, I'll bring you the mic, you can ask the question. And let's see, Jan, I know, is manning the Zoom feed. So those of you who are on Zoom, if you have questions and put them in the feed, then we'll be happy to speak those into the space too. So with that, I would say please welcome Devinder Singh as our guest speaker here at Unity.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank Reverend Kurt as well as Joseph. I've known Joe for I don't know how long now, and just a pleasant gentleman. As I've been, also I want to thank the congregation for giving me this time here to actually share the Sikh tradition with you guys and to learn a little bit more about Unitarianism and the Unity Church here. As we were going through today's services, there's one thing that utterly confused me, and I will say thank you for confusing me. I don't know if I'm a Unitarian or if you are all Sikhs. I cannot tell the difference. And now, maybe there's a third option here. Maybe this is the true concept that both of our groups have been learning about within our own sacred traditions, that maybe we do, as the first song beautifully was sung, are from one source. Or as the Sikh tradition would call it, Ik Onkar, the one creating, sustaining, and destroying power, or entity, or energy, as we believe. So I'm going to go ahead, as Reverend Kurt had stated earlier, that we're going to start with the, thank you, with the PowerPoint, but I want to have this dialogue so that way, you can stop me at any point. I have been known to babble on for hours and hours, and I don't want to bore you guys to sleep. But please stop me, ask questions. I like to have this back and forth dialogue that we have. Now, obviously, the tradition or the way of life is called the Sikh way of life. Post-British era, it was given the name Sikhism, although the actual terminology is Sikhi. And many people always ask me when I go into a high school or a college, well, what's the difference? And ism is an idea. Sikhi is a way of life, of actually practicing that idea. So in the Sikh tradition, there is no dichotomy between orthodoxy or orthopraxy, right? You practice what is written, and you try to practice it to the best of your ability in the world around you, while living in the world. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. So the origination of Sikhi was in this region right here, in the region of Punjab, right? Obviously, post-British era, that was divided up, and half of it, West Punjab rests in Pakistan, East Punjab rests in what is now the territory that is occupied by India, right? But this is where it was. Guru Nanak, the first guru, actually was born in 1469 in Talwandi, and if we look at borders now, national borders, it actually falls on the Pakistan side at the moment. A lot of Sikhs do not see two different nations. We actually see Punjab as one and as a whole that is currently being illegally occupied. Joseph and I actually shared some conversation very briefly on the independence movement that has been going on since the late 1800s, as well as that has been strengthened post the genocide period of 1984. We as Sikhs are still sustaining a genocide that goes on a day-to-day basis. But again, that's global politics, and I'll try to separate the two as much as I can, but I will take questions on either. If we look over here, this is just a simple depiction of where India is, where Pakistan is. I don't have a pointer, but the green, or the highlighter green, is India, and then the brown above it on the left side is Pakistan, and that region that you saw back there, right, it's actually right in between both of those. Northwest region of India, and majority of the northern Pakistan region is what we call Punjab. About 25 million Sikhs worldwide, 21 million Sikhs in the India-Pakistan zone in Punjab, right? Over 550,000 of them living in the United States. You know, fifth largest religion in the world, yet still visible, yet very invisible, as I said last night, for those that did come. So this gives you a little bit more of an in-depth visual on where exactly that region is. This is a picture of Guru Nanak, the first founder, or the first guru of the 10 of the Sikh way of life, or the Sikh tradition. Now, Guru Nanak came about in 1469 in a time period and in a region where women were second-class citizens. Actually, they were treated like property, right? And this man stood up and said, no, women are not second class. As a matter of fact, you know, how can we say that when from these women kings are born? Tell me how that could be possible if they're second class citizens, right? Very, very, how do I put it, revolutionary thought, very unpopular at that time period. As a matter of fact, if we go to other nations, we still see that struggle of equality being fought, right? So it's still considered revolutionary in many parts of the world. Also, this was at a time, keeping in mind that when the husband passed away, the woman was supposed to throw herself into the pyre as well, because without her husband, she was nothing. And Guru Nanak basically said, I don't think so. That doesn't fly with me. So it was a teaching that to us feels very normal, but at that time and at that point in history, and even today in some areas of the world, it's unheard of. It's almost a very revolutionary thought. Now, the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh, you know, his life was till 1708. This is the Darbar Sahib in Amritsar, which a lot of people refer to as the Golden Temple, right? This is one of the, now the beautiful part about the Darbar Sahib in 1588, the fifth Guru, Guru Arjan Dev, Guru Arjan Pasha was the one that put down the foundation for this. Now, about 100,000 people are fed every single day in the tradition of langar at this place on a daily basis. I'm going to slow down and stop because I see I keep on speaking, but I'm going to open up the forum to questions as well. And no question is a bad question.
Where is that first? That's a simple question. Where is that temple? Geographically, and then you speak of revolutionary as paradoxical. Right? Mm-hmm. Did I catch that right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. How difficult is that for the world to embrace? Because there's truth in paradox, right? Anyway,
absolutely.
Whatever your comments are.
Absolutely. Okay, we're done with questions. That was too hard. No, beautiful question, actually. So to answer your first question, that is in Amritsar, which is in Punjab. On the India side. That is actually where a little bit of history, since I'm a little bit of a history nut, in 1984, that is where tanks were brought in by the Indian government as well as the paramilitary and whatnot, and Sikhs were in an attempt to eradicate Sikhi. That was what was attacked. But yes, that is in Amritsar. Now, your second question, to answer that, it is a very difficult thing to live in that paradox, but yet to uphold that ideology. I think we all can kind of speak to that Even living in America, where we are very, very fortunate, we still have some of those things that make us question ourselves, as well as the societies that we live in. But it's never supposed to be easy. That's what I tell myself. You know, the best things in life are never easy. And it just happens to be that way. And maybe that is a reminder. I think of it as a reminder for myself, and I can only speak for myself, that there is still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of reaching across the table and doing these type of events, talking to people across the table and finding our similarities, our commonalities, and joining forces. I hope that helps answer that question.
Well, it could have helped me with some of my children.
I'm curious that when you think about the roots of the oppression of the Sikhs and the genocide that's occurred, how much of it is political for control over the land, and how much of it is that the religion itself threatens the status quo? You talked about, for example, equality of women, which very much threatens the status quo, particularly in India, but also in Pakistan.
Absolutely. On a capitalistic side, obviously everyone wants to grab as much land as possible. But it is that second point that you kind of hit the nail on the head. You know, when there is a threat to powers that be, we see this happening, right? In India, one of the biggest threats is Sikhs don't believe in the caste system, the eradication of the caste system, whereas we believe that everyone is equal, right? There is no higher class, there is no lower class. In the eyes of Akal Purakh, or the timeless one, or the energy that we speak of, we're all the same, we're all equal. And that is a threat, that is a huge threat, right? So a lot of that does have to do with challenging that authority. And Sikhs have never stepped down from that challenge, and I don't think we ever will. Yeah. Good question.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the symbol, the Nishan Sahib, that you will see at every Gurdwara, place of prayer. Okay.
Sorry. Could you comment on the relationship between Sikh and Kundalini Yoga?
Absolutely. So yoga is more of a Hindu tradition phenomenon, so to speak. We don't believe that you can reach a spiritual being through anything other than Simran and realization and Kirtan, or the divine word that we find in Guru Granth Sahib. You know, my daily rituals, my daily exercises, my runs may give me a cortisol boost, you know, but they're not going to get me to where I need to be. It's the concept of discipline is what's going to get me there. And that discipline is taught in the Guru Granth Sahib, our current living guru, which is our text, right? Those teachings, and not only reading those teachings, you know, remember earlier I said there is no difference between orthodoxy and orthopraxy in the Sikh ideology. So what we read, like for instance, I believe the second song that was sung was about love. Focus on love. And in the Guru Granth Sahib, we have Aval Allah Noor Paye Kudrat De Sab Bande, right? The Guru Granth Sahib uses the word for Akal Purakh, or the timeless one, and it uses the name in from many different traditions. Ram from the Hindu tradition, Allah from the Islamic tradition, right? Because to us, it's just many names for the same entity. I may call my father, Father. My sister may call him Daddy, but it is still the same person, the same relationship, right? And that line in itself tells us about love, that if we are all children of that same entity, so to speak, then it would only make sense to love each other. And if we each harbor that same energy, right? Ikon God, all is one. If you have Akal Purakh in you, and the trees do, and you do, and I do, how can I hate? Because I would just be hating myself. Now going back to the yoga aspect of it, that's a very physical portion of it, right? The Sikh tradition doesn't have the idea that you reach the Almighty, this energy through doing certain exercises, but rather based on discipline and following the word, the hukam, or the will of Akal Purakh. Yep. You'll see this, this marker, the Nishan Sahib, or the Nishan is called a marker in itself. It's a flag that will be basically on display at every Gurdwara. It's probably the highest thing you'll see. You'll probably see it from far, far away. The reason it's there is it's to give notice to everyone that Sikhs are here. This is a place of prayer for Sikhs, a Gurdwara, and if anyone is in need of a place to stay, a meal, any type of, any type of help, they can always go towards that sign and symbol, and they will be taken in as their own, and they will be helped. So if you ever see the Nishan Sahib, it flies at every Gurdwara. As a matter of fact, when I was in medical school and we would have our little Sikh Student Association events, the first thing we would hoist is the Nishan Sahib, because right now there is, at this place, there are Sikhs, and if anyone needs any type of help or refuge, we were there to help. So we tend to put the Nishan Sahib up at every Gurdwara and every place of meeting that Sikhs will be at. The symbol is actually a very beautiful symbol too. It's the Khanda. Now, have you seen the symbol before? How many watch Star Wars? So, yeah. So the Rebel Alliance, right? Their symbol was actually taken from the Khanda itself. George Lucas had an interesting little dialogue when he had an interview going on, and he stated that he saw these people with long swords in the northwest region of India, in the Punjab region, and that's where that idea of the Jedi Knights and the lightsabers came from. Yeah. So I know it's kind of funny because I see Jediism and whatnot cropping up and whatnot, and I think, more Sikhs, okay. But yes, the circle, the chakra, is actually a reminder that there is no beginning or ending to Akal Purakh, or as we call God or Allah or Ram. That entity, that energy can never be created and it's never destroyed. It's just always there. The two swords on the sides are Miri and Piri. A Sikh is supposed to not only be spiritually in tune, right, but also politically. Because the world runs on politics, but that politics can go astray very easily, as we see in the world daily. Now we have Israel and Palestine. Before that, we had other conflicts, but without spirituality, that leadership can turn into greed, and we can see the destruction that we see all around us. So it's a reminder that even when we lead as a people, like when we had the Sikh Raj or the Sikh kingdom under Maharaja Ranjit Singh, that it was to lead with this idea of spirituality. And the beautiful thing about that time period was that there were equal seats for every faith. And if a Muslim came to Maharaja Ranjit Singh saying, we want a mosque built here, the first thing that the Sikh king, they would say is, absolutely, but you have to also build a school. Build a school first, then build the mosque. And it went for everyone, every Sikh as well, that said, we want a Gurdwara here. Build a school, then you can build a mosque. The literacy rate, or the illiteracy rate, was zero in that kingdom in the late 1800s, which is fascinating. We don't even see that in America. Yep. That's one of the Gurdwaras in San Jose. For those that couldn't visit yesterday, just gives you an idea. It shows the Nishan Sahib, how it's hoisted, and you can. This one's on a hill. It's huge. It's bigger than the Palatine Gurdwara, and you could see it from miles down. I'll stop and slow down for other questions. I'm sure there's more questions. No? Okay. There's two in the back and one, we'll start with Joe. Go ahead.
Anyway, the Sikhi faith started with 10 gurus over like 200 years, and they all contributed to what is your like current scripture? Is that correct?
Absolutely. So the tradition, the Sikh tradition, flowed from Guru Nanak all the way to Guru Gobind Singh. And the writings of the gurus are within those 1,430 pages, which we consider our current living guru, the text, Guru Granth Sahib. Now, interestingly, it's not just Sikhs that are in that text, the Guru Granth Sahib. There are other supporting Hindus, Muslims, multiple other faith traditions that supported the same concept and ideology of the gurus that have also been put in there, which I have not seen in any other text as of till today, to be honest. But it was all those supporting ideas that supported the main theme that the guru was talking about. For one thing was, as we spoke about here, making this place a better world for all. For all, that concept of sarbatapala, right? As Reverend Kurt also mentioned, means for the welfare of all, right? Now, there were other traditions, faith traditions, that also had writings of that, and to support that idea, that was also put in as well. So you'll notice that it is not just Sikhs in the Guru Granth Sahib, but it's the concept of the spirit and the tradition and the thought that is the Guru. The Shabad is the Guru. Shabad is the actual word. There were two more questions in back.
Good morning. I don't know that I need a mic, but two questions for you. What is the significance of your dress? Like you have on like a turban. I've seen women as well that are Sikhs dressed with turbans. Is there any special significance to that? And also, where are your ideologies contained? I'm sorry if I missed that point, but for example, under Christian traditions, we have the Bible. You know, Islam has the Quran. Where are your religious traditions contained?
Great questions. Thank you. To answer your second one first, our traditions and our ideologies are basically in the Guru Granth Sahib. And you brought us right to the slide. The Guru Granth Sahib is our text, is our Guru, the 1,430 pages. And in there you will see these traditional ideologies that I speak of. Yep. Now your first question about the turban, right? We will move on to that as well, and I will explain that. But yes, there is a huge significance of the turban. It's my identity. It's my uniform. So remember, this was in a time where these traditional thought processes were considered very revolutionary. People were killed for thinking this way, right? And our guru, the 10th guru, basically said, and we keep that. Now, to keep it tidy and to keep that uniform, you'll see the turban being worn. Now, you'll see different types of turban. There's a post-British era turban, which most people are used to seeing. I have that on my driver's license. The turban I'm wearing today is the traditional turban. A lot of the youth are going more towards the traditional side of Sikhi and re-experiencing and finding more of the traditional things that were kind of lost while being in India, while being persecuted. Being in America and Canada and the UK, we can now go ahead and, dive into those things and explore those. And a lot of them are going back to those roots. That's the first one, Gis. Gara, which is a bracelet, a steel bracelet, is a reminder. It's that I'm wearing here. Does anyone that came yesterday know what the gara is? You don't have to be shy. It's okay. So it's my spiritual shackle, right? It's a reminder that force, the energy of Kalpuruk, was never born, never dies, always omnipresent circle. There's no end, there's no beginning to it. But at the same time, every time I do something, if I were to reach out, I'm going to look at that. And it's a reminder to me that I don't just represent myself, I represent an entire community. So whatever I do, I better make sure that I keep them in a good light, right? Ganga, which is a small comb, a wooden comb. Cleanliness is next to godliness, obviously, right? So it is there to care for the hair, the long hair. Mine is in my turban because it's the easiest way to carry it around rather than having it in a pocket. Kachara, which are breeches, right? There's special breeches that remind us of chastity, right? In today's day and age, in today's world, we see a lot of philandering, a lot of cheating, a lot of these things that a Sikh is from the beginning told never to do. Now, bearing in mind, one would ask, and one has asked when I went to a high school, well, this was way back in the 1500s. Cheating wasn't that prevalent. Okay. So why do you guys wear that? Good question. Obviously, that came from a high school student because they're always the ones that stump you. But remember, this was an area that a lot of the invaders were coming through, whether it be from Greek, whether it be Napoleon. Interesting tidbit of history. Napoleon was actually turned away. He had conquered everything except when he came to Punjab. That's where he could not conquer, and he was turned away from there. I just found that out about a year and a half ago while I was doing some reading. But invaders, the Mughal invaders, the Turks, they were all coming through here. And what's the first thing they do? Rape, pillage, right? And the Khalsa, or the sovereign, which is the Sikhs, the ideology is to free people. And when you go into battle, when you free a town that is being enslaved, right? We are not to turn into the enslavers or those that were plundering. It was a reminder to us that we are there. And there's a beautiful piece that I learned that when they would emancipate or free a town or a city, they would take all the loot that obviously that was acquired from the opposition and put it in the center. And the Khalsa would say, whatever you need, take. And then what is left is what we will take. So it was all about the people, giving them the power to freedom from all these subjugations. And again, that Kachara is a reminder of we don't go in when we go free someplace to go rape, pillage. And that also now translates till today. When we have our significant other, that's it. There is no going outside of those boundaries. And it's such a critical part of the faith that it became a part of our 5Ks, a part of our discipline. And then the fifth one is a kirpan. Now, I'll ask you guys if you know what the kirpan represents and what that is. Yes.
Yeah, so people online can hear.
Thanks. I didn't know until last night that every Sikh apparently carries a weapon, which is usually a small sword, or it can be a small, even smaller symbol. Some of the women showed us their girfan. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
And it's to be ready to protect others. Was my understanding from last night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The kirpan, the word kirpan actually it's made of two words, kirpa and an. An means tool, right? Kirpa means to help others, a tool to help others and to preserve your honor. You know, many people have asked me in the past, oh, why a kirpan? Why a small knife or a dagger or something like that? Right? We live in a world of missiles and guns. I always turn the question around. You go into the military, everyone carries a bayonet. Everyone carries some type of a sharp blade, right? Guns will freeze up on you. They will falter. But at the end of the day, it's not about fighting a war. It's about you never know where you might find yourself in a situation where you have to protect someone else, right? It's not, we have been taught, the tradition is not there to scare others, but it's also not there to be afraid of others as well, right? I've been in a couple of situations myself where I have had to think, do I reach for it or do I not reach for it at this point, right? And the concept is very important to remember that a Sikh always believes in being a saint soldier, a sant sipahi. Train the mind first to be saintly so that you never have to wield the sword. But if you have to, it is done as a last resort and with the mind of a saint.
So I have two questions. One is, so is it also intended not only to protect others, but for yourself?
Yes. Yes.
And question online, if a Sikh sins and is unfaithful to their spouse, what is their punishment? How do they atone?
Great question. Very great question. So we have an initiation ceremony. Anyone that is a Sikh has gone through the initiation ceremony. Anyone that is not gone through that initiation ceremony, called Khande di Paul, is what we call a Sajtar, or someone that is, I guess, learning to get to that point and who aspires to be a Sikh, right? Because we are at different levels of our growth process. For those that have taken Khande di Paul, if they do cheat on their spouse or whatnot, they do have to present themselves in front of the Panj Pyare, the five beloved ones, and confess as well as ask for forgiveness. And a punishment is given. But until that is done, they have fallen. They're called patit, and they're actually not considered Sikh anymore. Yeah. Yeah. Forgiveness is there, but it must be asked, and one must, how do I put it? One must take steps towards retribution. It's not just given.
Also, does a female Sikh also carry a sword?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Men and women are considered as equals. So what a man can do, a woman ought to do. And one of the most beautiful stories that I know of, there was a war between the Mughals and the Sikhs. We remember them in our prayer every single day, the Chali Mukte, who had basically written a letter to Guru Gobind Singh Ji, the 10th master, saying that, you know what, we're done with this. We can't fight this war. We have no provisions, no food. We're suffering. And remember, this was 1,000 men to an army of 10,000 plus, right? Maybe even more than 10,000. And they were badly outnumbered. And the Guru said, that's fine. And the letter basically said, we now no longer are your Sikhs. We're done. And, the Guru basically, long story short, said, okay, I will take this, your resignation. When they went home, the interesting thing is their wives basically said, here are our bangles. You take care of the house. we are going to go back to battle for our guru, right? And well, you know, in that time when a woman says that, well, what are we going to do? Hang our head in shame? And she brought back all 40 of those to fight in that battle, and actually was known as one of the top generals of the Sikh Khalsa Fauj, or the Khalsa army. But yeah. Yes and no. The only dietary restriction we have, there are two. One is a Sikh does not eat halal meat. I'm waiting for the question of why. Because everyone's like, why? If all traditions are equal and we're all, why? Well, this was during a time when the Mughal rule, the Turks, whatnot, they were of Muslim faith, but I don't like to say that they were Muslim, right? Because Islam is a religion of peace as well. And as we know, many people use religion for their own political agendas. When they came through, they were forcing anyone and everyone that if you're going to eat the meat, you're going to have to eat it in our faith tradition. And the Sikhs, being the rebels that we are, said, no, that's not happening, right? And this is a reminder, we carry this on till today, that we don't eat halal meat, is a reminder that as they had subjugated their faith onto others, and we rebelled against that, this is a reminder that we are never to subjugate our faith onto another person as well. And that's why we still carry that tradition. So a Sikh will never eat halal meat as a reminder of the past and a reminder of how we are to conduct ourselves in the future with those who are also not Sikh. And the second dietary restriction is anything that keeps us away from remembering the divine. So alcohol, tobacco, drugs, you know, those are going to be restricted for a Sikh because they do alter the mind and alter our perception of the divine and the ability to realize the divine. I have a feeling there's another question in the back. Go ahead. I'm here for you.
Being in India, if one wants to acquire a driver and a car, usually it's a Hindi guy who's the translator and a Sikh driver. Is that like, and I almost thought that the Sikh driver he was actually serving almost not military, but he was there to be a guard. Is that a phenomenon that is, am I just making this up?
No, you're not. You're not. That's a very good observation. So the Sikh tradition is about being a saint soldier, the Sant Sipahi tradition. So a lot of Sikhs were, and they still are, you know, regarded as being protectors. And then there's the whole concept of seva or service, which this slide is actually showing. This is one of the organizations, Khalsa Aid, that goes into areas to help and serve humanity, which is a major focal point of the Sikh way of life. But there was a time in the pre-British era and post-British era where a Sikh's testament in a court, right, their testimony was considered rock solid, golden, because a Sikh is not supposed to lie, and he's there to protect people. And you'll probably see that's why in India, when people need help, they will run to a Sikh. Or, you know, that is why the Sikh takes on that protective role, because from day one, they've been taught to protect humanity. So it's not something that you're wrong on, you're imagining. It's something that's very much so. Even 9/11, after 9/11, I actually know the gentleman's father, who was the first responder on that site That was a Sikh, Dr. Nijjar. He actually opened up a triage center in a bank, at the Bank of America, and started triaging. Worked day and night helping those victims that were victims of the 9/11 massacre. But the sad thing is on his way home, the first thing he heard was, "Go back to your country, you terrorist." Right? But the beauty of that is his response when we would ask him this, and he's still practicing medicine now, is, "I don't think about those things. My focus is on helping people and humanity. You know, if someone misunderstands me, that's fine. Hopefully they will gain that knowledge sometime in their life and understand what they said was, out of ignorance."
So I have a question for the chat box. As far as drugs are concerned, do the Sikhs take medication from the doctor when they're ill?
Yes, we do. If there is an ailment, it's obviously to get back into your normal state of being, right? But we don't use drugs of any sort, including alcohol. A Sikh is not to partake in alcohol either. That dampens the faculties. Yeah.
If
Go ahead, sir.
if there's one key kernel of advice you would like all people to take in, all of us Americans, how would you advise us how to better live?
Very, very deep question. Very.
I mean, I'm sure there's much, but
I think, and this is just my opinion, we may say, from the teachings of the Sikh tradition, I think we have forgotten how to love each other. You step outside and there's a lot of hate. Not only for different traditions, but different ideas, different thoughts even. We struggle with the right to abortion or the right to life. And we make it personal. And I think if we can step back and see that these are just ideas that we are trying to wrap our minds around, but the person that may not believe in the same thing that I believe in is also a person, we may be able to come to a middle ground, come to a point of understanding each other, come to solutions. But until we practice love and we start to see everyone as a part of that energy, as a part of ourselves, we're going to continue to have these struggles. So I guess the only thing I can say is to step back and remember that even though I may not agree with, I'm going to pick on you, Joe, even though I don't agree with this idea that Joe may have, that doesn't mean Joe is bad. That just means that we need to sit down and have a dialogue through love. So I would say love.
I'd like to ask about how you educate and raise children in the Sikh tradition. And also because, in America, we're seeing in many faiths, children are not coming to church or whatever the religious building is called. And also, I was also curious, what language do Sikhs speak? And do you speak it? And do you teach children that language?
Okay, I'm gonna answer the second question because that's easier to answer. So in our household, we speak Punjabi, right? And we teach our children at a very young age to speak it because every Sikh is to be able to read the Guru Granth Sahib, and that's written in Gurmukhi, in that script. So it makes it easier to do so. Although there are a lot of Sikhs who are not from Punjab. There are Chinese Sikhs, there are Thai Sikhs, there are American Sikhs. I was born and raised here, right? But that tradition, the culture of Sikhi flows in all of them, and so there is a unifying factor. Everyone does learn to read and be able to read the Guru Granth Sahib. So Punjabi still is taught through and throughout. Whatnot. Now, your first question is a very difficult question to answer. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot going on in the world where many forces are trying to, disconnect people from faith, right? There's many faith traditions have come under, I guess, attack is the best word, by science, by politics, by many different factions of those that want to rule and lead, which for us, we're very fortunate. For a Sikh, everything revolves around the Gurdwara, the place of prayer, the Guru, right? So when you're born, the naming ceremony, there, is through a practice through a traditional practice that we do. When you get married, it's at a Gurdwara. The death rites at a Gurdwara. The coming of age, so to speak, the Dastarbandi happens at a Gurdwara. That's a focal point for every Sikh, so that makes it a little bit easier. Have we seen Sikhs that are moving away from the Gurdwara? I think every faith is experiencing that to some degree. Usually at a time of high school and junior and college is when we also experience that. At a time when I think children need faith in their life. But again, we're also seeing that once they pass that journey, a lot of them are coming back. A lot of them are realizing as the world gets even more detrimental to the way it is operating, we see more people coming back to the faith practices. So we may see empty chairs today, but I think those chairs eventually do get filled. I have to have hope, because faith and hope are what keep humanity going, right? Power and greed are the two things that destroy humanity. And I have to believe that humanity will persevere. Yes.
I think I would like to ask about forms of prayer. How do you pray? I know we have a video of some chanting, and you were mentioning yesterday about 5 times a day prayer. Maybe you can talk more about how you pray.
Absolutely. And then we'll go on to the question that you had. So a Sikh is the idea of Sikhi is about being in discipline, the saint soldier concept. And we do pray 5 prayers every day, 3 times a day. So in the morning I would wake up, I will do Japji Sahib, Jap Sahib, and Tav Prasad Soya. Those are the 3 prayers that I would do. Takes about 30 minutes and helps me center myself before the day gets started. Raras, which is done when the sun goes down, recenters me after a very chaotic day. And then before I sleep, a short prayer, which is called Soila, which is kind of a prayer of thanks for letting me go through this day and experience the experiences that I have. And hopefully I've learned something from here that tomorrow can be lived a little bit better than today. Yep. Now, we do have the tradition in our Gurdwaras, as Joe is probably nudging me to talk about, is Kirtan, which is the singing of hymns. And the hymns from the Guru Granth Sahib, our 1430-page text, or the Guru. And they're all, every hymn is written in rag, or in a measure of music. Because music, the Gurus believe that music is what really moved people. And I see that we have that same belief between the 2 traditions here as well. So a morning Shabad or Kirtan, prayer, recitation, sung, has a different feeling than one that's sung in the evening, and different rags are attuned to the time of day. And I think there is a video that we have where you'll be able to experience what a Shabad or a Kirtan sounds like.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. One is, how do the Sikhs view abortion? And then as far as helping other people in the world, do you have yearly plan, or does each community have their own process for how they go out and help in the community?
Sure. The first one is a loaded question, so whoever asked that, thanks. Thanks for making it a little bit difficult for me today. Sikhi in itself doesn't have a yay or a nay in abortion. Okay. We are to live our life within the will of God, or the will of Akal Purakh, Hukam, right? Hukam hai andar sabko baar, hukam na koi is the line that everything is within the will of the divine, right? So each person has the autonomy to decide whether this is their need. Me coming from a medical background, right? I can understand that some people, you know, a rape victim is to be treated differently than you know, a person who is careless and whatnot. And I think that the traditions, and I like to believe that the traditions of the Sikh way of life instill that into us, that we take life as a very sacred thing. And if we are to create life, we are to think multiple times before we do anything that would create life. But if there are situations that we are put in that we didn't have a say in, that is also not something that we would hold against a Sikh as well. I hope that helped answer that question, because Sikhi doesn't say yes or no, right? But it says if you follow the ideology of a Sikh way and a Sikh thought process, that decision, if you can live with that decision, is one that, you know, you take. Those are two. Oh, the second question was about helping the world. Do we have one big, you know, body that decides that, or small communities? The concept of seva and helping the world, Sarva Tapala, is so universal that we have so many different groups. We have them at the community level, we have them at the state level, the city level, the national level, and the global level. And it's so fluid. Today I might be talking to you about Sikhi, doing my part through the Sikh Resource Society. Tomorrow I may be involved in a project by the Khalsa Aid, who goes out, that's Ravi Singh from Khalsa Aid, who's out in Syria helping feed the top one where he went to Africa, helping him do whatever he needs to do. So it's such a fluid dynamic, and the one core thing that holds it together is helping others. And wherever we feel that we can put our time in, our money in, our share in, we do that. So there's no one distinct organization, but multiple, and each one of us is involved in all of those, or in many of those. That's just what the Gurmukhi looks like, or when it was handwritten back in the days. And that is actually the Mool Mantra, the first thing that the Guru Granth Sahib starts with, and it's the description of the Akal Purakh, the timeless one, the one that's, you know, infinite, the one that has no hate, no fear. And the concept is for us to be in that, to live in that same energy, without hate, without fear, with complete love, with oneness. So this is just what that Mool Mantra is. Ik Onkar, we are all one. Sat Nam, that energy is the truth. So on and so forth. You'll see Nirpo, Nirvad, Akal Murat. What these mean are that entity has no fear, no hate, no, you know, it's forever there. It was there before I came about, before humanity came about. It'll probably be there after all humanity has gone. It is that energy. In physics, we know it as energy. And in the Star Wars tradition, we call it the Force. This talks about, as what we spoke about, and I spoke about these things kind of out of order, is equality, commitment, and the concept of being a saint soldier, wielding your mind before you wield the sword. These are the 5 Ks that we did talk about. We all wear it. I'm wearing mine. You can't see it. It's here on my side. And these are some Sikhs. He's from Chicago, actually. You will see us in every part of life, every faction of life as doctors. You know, Sikhs have participated in world wars as well with the Allies. Very few people know that a lot of Sikhs were stationed in Italy, annexing, again, you know, towns from German strongholds or Nazi strongholds. Some more pictures of World War I, World War II Sikhs. And then Sikhs in today's world, serving in their military, serving in the armed forces, you know, sitting next to President Bush in making decisions. Something interesting I found out, Guru Nanak, the first Guru, he had traveled all over in the East to a point he went as far as Mecca and to Rome. The Vatican has, I guess, carvings and writings of that time of Guru Nanak's visit to Rome. I found that very fascinating. I can barely walk 10 miles, and this person walked from Punjab all the way over to Rome. Sikhs do not believe in conversions. We don't go out seeking conversions. It is basically a way of life that is chosen. And those that choose it, whether they are from Punjab or from any other part of the world, we are very open to that, you know. So a lot of faiths find it that we're non-threatening because we don't go out and proselytize. We don't look at increasing our numbers and whatnot. And that all comes from, you know, you respect everyone and their way of life. We do a lot of these empathy 101s over at the social studies symposiums and interfaith, the Parliament of World Religions, where we do get a turban tied, see what it feels like. Sometimes, you know, a lot of people are interested to know, well, what does it feel like to wear a turban? And so there's just a few pictures of what we do, just to build a bridge between communities. I'll leave it open for any more questions. Yes.
Well, now that you've told us how you live, what do you believe happens after you pass on?
Great question. Could you repeat the question? The question was now that I've told you of what we believe in, how we live, what about after we pass? Right? The Gurus openly said, we don't know what happens. You know, no idea. And anyone that has gone and come back, let's be a little skeptical about that. But at the same time, the goal is for a Sikh to live the best life today, right? Is to make the world a better place than when we first came and found it. So the focus for a Sikh is today, here, and now. And hopefully our good actions, our good karma, our good that we put into the world, we won't be reborn again, or we won't have to go through any of these, whatever it is that happens. We will join the light of the Infinite One. And that's the ultimate. Do the best you can for the world today in hopes that, because being in this life basically for a Sikh is suffering, right? So that you don't have to suffer anymore. You just merge with the light, and that is that. But the Gurus had openly said, I don't know. You know? Yeah.
Do you wish Sikh were pronounced Sikh?
It's a good question. I cringe when someone calls it Sikh, right? By letter and term, it's actually Sikh. And it's derived from the Persian words shishya, and it means disciple, right? Or a student for life, right? So yes, unfortunately, when the British came, they, the English tongue sometimes cannot speak certain words, and so they said Sikh. But I like to correct people, it's Sikh. Yeah. Yep. Yes. The last one was Guru Gobind Singh, and he passed in 1708. Great question. Great question. So when the guruship was passed on, there was a point where it was passed on to a female, but she refused it and said, "Give it to my husband." Now, that's kind of revolutionary in itself that it was passed on to a female, or a female was even thought for that position at that time. But that female, and I believe it was passed on to Guru Amar Das Ji at that point, it was given to his wife, and she said, "Give it to my husband," because she understood that they lived in a time and age where it might be difficult to carry on that message if we had, if it was given to a female. Although during Guru Nanak, the first Guru's time period, a lot of the manjis, or a lot of the places of teaching, those positions were held in equal by men and women. Yes.
Do you think there will be a coming of another guru at any time?
No. No. If there is going to be a coming of another guru at any time in the future. So the Guru Granth Sahib, and I keep pointing to the slide even though it's not up there for some reason. So the Guru Granth Sahib is the final living guru for the Sikhs. The 10th Guru had said that going forward there will be no human that will be a guru. The guru will be the Guru Granth, which will be the teachings, and the Guru Panth. And unified will be your guru. The Panth is the collective Sikhs that make the political decisions of the day-to-day, and the Guru Granth, which is the ideology. And the Panth is to always conduct itself with the ideology of the Guru Granth. And that unified is what is our guru and will always be going forward. We don't, from the spiritual side of things, we don't have a dance. There's a line, and it slips my memory. Nachan kuddan man ka chao, right? Dancing and all these things, these are all the mind's games, right? We dance in our worldly worlds to please our mind. But in the tradition, the spiritual tradition, it's to control the mind from going into all these different, even when we sit down and try to meditate, our mind doesn't want to sit still, right? I'm always thinking about the next thing I have to do on the job, or, what I'm going to do later on, if I'm going to go get coffee with a friend. And it's the concept of stilling the mind to being in the now, to get connected to that divine. So, it's, yes, dancing is great, but it's not a part of the tradition because it is a mind's construct. Yeah. Okay. I think we're going to go ahead and give you there's a video of what Kirtan is. Last year, or I'm sorry, not last year, pre-COVID, which seems like last year, we had Navneet and Shamsher who were able to sing the Kirtan live for us. Unfortunately, they were unable to make it this time. So Joe has gratefully put together the video from the last meeting that we had.
One more question.
Sure.
One more. Is it acceptable to have a picture of Guru Nanak in one home?
I can't say acceptable or not acceptable, but the Sikhs don't believe in pictures because that's our perception of what the Guru looked like, right? There's a very famous picture that was made, but if you look at it, that picture was made in the image of the painter. So it wasn't Guru Nanak. Are there paintings of Guru Nanak from his time? Yes, different people tried to paint him differently, but a Sikh doesn't keep pictures of the Gurus in their home because the Guru is the Guru Granth Sahib. Now, some Sikhs may, as they're raising children, to kind of teach them that, hey, this is, as a child, you kind of need a visual. And so some may do that. But we don't think that that picture is the actual Guru. Yeah. Okay. I think we've extinguished all questions. And if there are more, I will be here afterwards as well. You guys can ask me anything. Nothing is off limits. And thank you. Yes. Did you want to? So I guess we're going to go ahead and show the video of the Kirtan. Oh, is it on the next slide?
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਮੂਲਾਲਨ ਸਿਉ ਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਬਣੀ ਮੂਲਾਲਨ ਸਿਉ ਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਬਣੀ
little sample of what Kirtan sounds like. And this composition was written by the fifth Guru in the rag Bilaval. It's a rag of love, of elation. And basically the theme of it is that I've fallen in love with the beloved, with the Akal Purakh, this timeless entity. And I've fallen so deeply in love with this tradition, this idea, this concept of Akal Purakh, of the energy, that it's a string that even if I try to let go, I can't let it go. Or if someone tries to cut it, it won't sever the bond. So it's Guru Arjan Dev Ji, the fifth Guru, basically singing about his complete devotion and being a sacrifice to Akal Purakh, the energy that is within all of us. I want to thank everyone here. Thank you, Reverend Kurt. Thank you, Joseph, for giving me this time to speak to you guys. And as I said, if there's anything else that you have questions about, I'll be more than happy to answer. Okay. Thank you.
And we want to thank you, Devinder. This has been wonderful. I've gotten a really wonderful education, and I think we've all learned a lot. So thank you for coming today and enlightening us. We're going to run through the next part really quickly. So for love offerings, you can use the donate button on the website, or there's a bowl in the back for those who are here in the sanctuary to drop off cash and checks. In terms of announcements, well, first of all, we want to thank the live stream team, the musicians, and everyone else here today who made this possible. And quickly, announcements: the Many Paths, One Source series will be continuing. More details on the website. And Reverend Kurt will be teaching a class starting March 3rd, kind of a fundamentals of unity for potential members or anyone who's interested in learning that or getting a refresher course. And now we will have our peace song and prayer for protection.
And now please join me in the prayer for protection. The words are on the screen. Yes. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. Thank you for coming. Thank you to our guest. Please have a great Sunday.